A lot of us like to sneak into local cafes to get work done. But what if you had your own workplace with a free cafe inside? The shop is serving up unlimited lattes, cold brew, and cappuccinos 24/7, plus a rotating selection of local blends, so your favorite coffee shop comes to you. Fuel your productivity at the shop workspace. Get details on memberships, day passes, and take a virtual tour at shopworkspace.com. Today on CityCast Salt Lake, Erica Kirk and the parents of Charlie Kirk are expected to be in town this week for a preliminary hearing in the case of Charlie Kirk's killing. We're going to get you caught up, and then we are going to zoom way out and take a look at the stars. What is in Salt Lake's astrological forecast, and how can it help you plan? I'm Vallarta, here with Salt Lake Tribune politics reporter and astrologer Addy Baird. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
So good to be with you. This is going to be, I think, kind of a huge week in Utah. The Charlie Kirk case coming back to life in the form of this week-long preliminary hearing, which we know after lots of decision making will be live streamed. I think it's going to feel like a media circus. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. I think it's going to be crazy. I think it's going to be really intense. And I think I haven't been in the courtroom. My colleague Jessica Schreifels has been our amazing court reporter since this has been moving its way through the court. But Obviously, I remember covering the shooting, and it was easily one of the most intense and emotional, and just sort of everyone I knew, everyone that you know was engaged on this. Opening Instagram on September 12th, 2025 was so crazy. And it wasn't just Utah. It was all over the country, all over the world that people were engaged on this topic. And I think that for the first time, having his widow and his parents in the courtroom next in the upcoming hearing is going to feel like that again. I think it's going to bring those feelings back up to the surface that have been just kind of simmering in these preliminary hearings.
Yeah. And we should specify. So this is not a trial. What's happening this week is not a trial. This is a preliminary hearing. So what's happening is prosecutors, aka the state of Utah, are going to present the evidence that they have that they think is sufficient for the judge to send this case to trial.
Right.
And the defendant is a young man named Tyler Robinson. He is now 23 years old. And so after this happens, then we get things like a trial date. Then we get things like Tyler Robinson entering a plea. Just so you know, what the evidence they're laying out is seeking a aggravated murder trial. They want the death penalty. The defense actually asked the judge to take the death penalty off the table, and he said no. This is a fourth district court judge. This trial will happen down in Provo. And I think it could be useful to just lay out kind of the bones of what we know happened here, because you mentioned September 12th, 2025. It feels like a decade ago, even though it was just last fall. So if you'll have me, I'm just going to kind of lay out the bones here without being gruesome or forcing anyone to feel re-traumatized, because this was an absolutely chilling day in our state. So the day was September 10th. Charlie Kirk is appearing at Utah Valley University. He comes out on stage and very soon is hit by a single shot. Investigators say this was from a nearby rooftop. The shooter, allegedly, according to investigators, jumps down from the building, disappears into a nearby neighborhood. Charlie Kirk is transported to Timpanogos Hospital, where he dies from his injuries. So the campus is in lockdown. It's a horrific day. Then eventually Tyler Robinson, who's now the accused, is brought into custody. And the reason that this happens, what's also, I think, is not bizarre, but feels sort of unusual, feels in some way, I want to be careful, very Utah, because his parents recognize him in the photos and they basically call him and say, "Come home." And they have sort of what sounds like a family conversation about what happened. The father calls a local youth pastor. This is an LDS family, who's also a U.S. Marshal Task Force officer. The officer advises the father to have Robinson stay in place. This information is conveyed to the FBI. And it was sort of a family choice. Like this happened in the home.
Yeah, I believe he was like a former member of the bishopric of their ward, comes in to like advise them on what to do. It was such a strange experience to be covering this as it happened and to have these things that felt like this is actually Utah business. Like we don't actually need the entire, like we don't need to be explaining to the entire world like what the bishopric of a ward means. Like it just felt so strange to see these things that feel very Utah, like burst into the international eye. It was very odd.
Yeah. And I think we're about to have to do that again.
Absolutely.
Even just the fact of having Erica Kirk in our state for up to a week. I mean, she has become as famous, if not more, than Charlie Kirk was at the time of his death. Like she has become, I think, a sort of face of the Republican Party in a lot of ways. The politics of this case and the case itself feel inextricable.
And I say this with absolutely no moral judgment on it. It's a simple fact. Erica Kirk has become a meme in recent weeks, like or months. It's been since the shooting. And people have been very invested in what she's up to, what she's wearing, how she's speaking, where she's speaking. Yeah. And ultimately, as you mentioned, it's going to be live streamed. And so I think that I can only imagine like the amount of constant screenshots and tweets and blue skies and threads and Instagrams and Reddits about this in real time as it goes, which is exactly what Robinson's attorneys were hoping to avoid. And I will say, as a reporter, I think it's a complicated question. Like when we look back to part of the reason that the OJ trial becomes such...
the way I was going to bring up the OJ trial.
But okay, you have to.
Yes, keep going.
You have to. It is, I think, the seed in a lot of ways for what we're dealing with here, because the OJ trial comes with Court TV. It's the first trial that live streamed, essentially, on television, on Court TV. And the way that has had an effect to this day. Like we talk about that all the time. The like white Bronco was off the market for years because of this, you know, if the glove, all of it, the Kardashians exist because of it. Like it is inextricable with our American culture. And I think we can see this thread from that to this. And, you know, I used to be an archivist and I had a period where I went through the archives of all of this stuff from the OJ trial. And I had a moment of being like, man, that would have been so bizarre to live through. I think I'm about to know what that felt like.
I also think it's really notable that one of the people who pushed for this trial to be live streamed is Erica Kirk.
Yes.
And like some national media organizations, like she is... you know, in that decision-making process, she pushed hard for this to be live streamed. And the feeling was that it could settle any misinformation that would be circulating about the case.
And I will say, Charlie Kirk and the Turning Point organization, they are, again, and I say this neutrally as a fact, social media geniuses. They have had an ability to reach young people on the internet that has defined Charlie Kirk's life, career, and legacy. And I think that Erica has that ability. I think that maybe she was part of Charlie's ability to do that. I think we've seen her ability to speak to people and get her message out. And frankly, in her shoes, I might want the same thing for people to see this trial unfold. And at the same time, you know, Robinson's defense, like I completely understand their hesitancy to let this become a spectacle. It makes picking a jury very difficult. But as the judge said, this was all going to happen anyway. The jury was already going to be difficult to select. The trial was, it doesn't matter if it was completely no media. You have a sketch artist and reporters who can only use notebooks. They were going to run out of the courtrooms, do their TV spots, send their articles in, and it was immediately going to be an internet conversation. Like, it was going to be this anyway, but this is the most extreme version.
I mean, there will be evidence that is revealed that we have not seen.
Yeah.
For example, they're planning to play, I guess, a video from Lance Twiggs, Tyler Robinson's roommate and romantic partner at the time of Kirk's death. I know that Tyler Robinson's attorneys don't want that video to be used as evidence. They feel like Lance Twiggs should have to be subpoenaed and testify in person. And I think, to me, that's relevant to another piece of this, which is how much of the evidence is going to be things we've already seen. I mean, we witnessed this assassination via video footage live. Like, we saw it. It is not it is not hearsay. And in that way, it feels like so many people experienced it to an extent. Of course, not the same as being there in person, but the extent to which, like, footage and video will be already a part of this case is sort of unprecedented. And I think concerns me because also, if it's being live streamed, I mean, this could be incredibly re-traumatizing for a lot of young people in our state.
Yeah.
Students at UVU. I mean, young people who were watching the live stream of Charlie Kirk. Like, it is a social media trial to an extent.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be important for people to make their own decisions. Like, we get really attached to this digital world, but you actually are allowed to log off. You don't have to watch the trial. And I think that's important for people to remember. I also think it's important to remember that people are innocent until proven guilty. And we absolutely watched this unfold in real time. But Tyler Robinson has not been proven guilty. We saw what happened, but we don't know. We don't know without a shadow of a doubt that it was Tyler Robinson that did it. Absolutely. There's been evidence in the media. There's been evidence presented by, law enforcement at the time and by Governor Cox, who was really doing the media rounds. But we don't know. And so I don't know what we will see in this preliminary hearing that's new to us. But what is also notable is, assuming that this goes to trial, and I think it will, that's what's being determined in this preliminary hearing, is if there is enough evidence for this to actually go to trial. And if this goes to trial, we're doing this all again.
Yep. And the bar is much lower.
Correct.
For determining whether there's enough evidence to go to trial. The bar is not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
It really favors the state.
So. Legally it does, yeah. Under state law, the judge has to consider everything presented in this hearing in the light most favorable to the prosecution. Because again, we're not determining whether Tyler Robinson is guilty or innocent here. We're determining whether there is enough evidence for this to actually go to trial, where you enter a plea, people come in and give testimony. We'll see some versions of this in the hearing, but this isn't the trial. Like, we will likely do this all again.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned Governor Cox, and before we move on, I do want to quickly play a clip of the governor speaking. I think it was on the evening of September 10th, because something I've really been sitting with as we prepare for this conversation is the death penalty in Utah and Utah's relationship with the death penalty. And so I would like us to revisit the governor's own words.
To whoever did this, we will find you. We will try you. And we will hold you accountable to the furthest extent of the law. And I just want to remind people that we still have the death penalty here in the state of Utah.
I think in the wake of this day, Governor Cox got a lot of credit for his tone. And I think it's important that we don't misremember it. He is a lawyer. He understands how the judicial system works very well. And he is saying an eye for an eye. And that to me is so interesting and I think difficult, because there was a time in this state where I felt truly, like 2021, 2022, that we were actually going to get rid of the death penalty. We were tracking that way. We had district attorneys urging the legislature and Governor Cox to repeal Utah's death penalty, and one of them was Utah County district attorney at the time. We had 2 formerly pro-death penalty Republican legislators introduce a bill to repeal and replace capital punishment in 2022. That bill died in committee, but only by a single vote. Like, there was momentum around getting rid of the death penalty. And I feel like this case, for people who are opposed to the death penalty, like me, frankly, I'll be honest, is really going to set us back.
It's so the issue underlying every single thing that we discuss about this case, that before this suspect was even caught, Governor Cox was calling for his death. And that set the tone. And I interviewed Attorney General Derek Brown the morning after Robinson was brought to Washington County law enforcement. And he said the death penalty was still on the table, but it was complicated. As the top cop in the state, he was talking about how to actually... The reason that aggravated murder matters here, Ali mentioned this earlier, that they are pursuing a charge of aggravated murder. A regular murder charge is not eligible for the death penalty. And there has been significant argument about whether this meets an aggravated murder level, essentially. There are various different standards, and it has to have at least 2 aggravating factors. And I talked to defense attorneys around the state once this came out for their opinion. And many of them argued that it didn't meet both aggregating factors, but the state has argued that it does. So it's just a complicated legal question. And I think, Ali, to your point, it's like, it's part of the intensity. Having Erica Kirk here, having Charlie Kirk's parents here, having it live streamed, having it be here in our state, in our backyard, 10 minutes away from where I grew up. It's hard to even wrap my head around the fact that that's where we are now, and that what underlies all of this is the state's earnest desire to kill a young man. And you can agree or disagree on the rightness of that. But I guarantee you sit down with Governor Cox and he would say that part of his feeling is that that's not an easy decision, and that the intensity of this case merits that decision. But I think that people have every right to feel intensely about the state's intent and goal, express goal, from before this man was even caught to kill him. It's remarkable.
Addy, that is, I think, really poignant and also incredibly dark. And I want to acknowledge that we're gonna make a pretty significant tone shift here. We're gonna take a little break for ads. We're gonna come back and we're gonna look to the stars to help us explain this moment in our city and some other things that are going on. So take a break with us. Addy Baird, you are a wonderful political reporter in our state, and you are also a wonderful astrologer. And I want to know if you can share some insight about what is happening right now in the skies and how it might be able to help us understand this moment in our city and our state, and also prepare for the weeks ahead.
Yeah. Well, last time that I was on CityCast, I was here talking about Mercury retrograde. It happens 3 to 4 times a year. And we're back. So I'm proud to be CityCast.
We are?
We're back.
Oh, my God. No.
We're back. I'm proud to be CityCast's local Mercury retrograde consultant.
You are. You really are.
So this is something that people may have, I think for a lot of your listeners, this is something that you've probably heard of. This is the most meme-ified astrology ever, when people are like, Mercury's in Gatorade. What is actually happening with Mercury retrograde is that...
And when did it start? For anyone who does know and they're like,
And they're like,
tell me when it began.
Yeah. It started on June 30th. So as you're listening to this, it's been like about a week. And it will go until Pioneer Day, until the 24th of July. And so it's a little under a month. And what is actually happening with Mercury retrograde is from our position on Earth, and all astrology happens from our perspective on Earth. It looks like Mercury is moving backwards in the sky. Mm-hmm. Astrologically, it's this retrograde movement. Astronomically, obviously planets don't move backwards. They continue their journey around the sun in their regular motion. But because Mercury moves so much faster than Earth, at some point, as we're on our journey around the sun, Mercury actually rounds the bend of the sun and then looks from our perspective like it's pulling backward. And so you can imagine for ancient people who watch the skies, astrology is an 8,000 plus year old practice. You can imagine how strange it would be to see a star that you have watched move through your sky, start to move backward, and how that might put a spanner in the works for you.
In and of itself, a communication breakdown.
Exactly. In and of itself, this communication breakdown of like, wait a second, we thought we understood how the stars moved. Like, what is going on here? And I always like to remind people of that. It's sort of this time of communication breakdown because Mercury is the planet of communication. It rules how we talk to each other. It rules all of our forms of communication, email, voice, letters, the mail. It rules our marketplaces. It rules our finances. It rules our technology, all of the ways that we exchange and communicate with each other. And so this backwards motion is, in the most simple way possible, this communication breakdown. It's a moment where, like, if you think you sent an email, double check. Make sure that for some reason it's not sitting in the outbox. If you think that you were very clear with someone about your feelings, you might not have been. You might have thought that you were, but they might not have actually taken it in and processed it and understood it.
Interesting. So not a time to leave anything unsaid.
It's not a time to leave anything unsaid, but don't be impulsive. Give yourself a moment to actually like think about what you want to say before you say it.
Okay.
I will also say the other kind of classic Mercury retrograde reminders are don't sign contracts. And whenever I say that, I remind people like life goes on. Astrology is not meant to make you scared. Astrology is not meant to make you lock yourself inside and not live your life. But I've seen this in my life a million times. If you sign a contract right now, you might have to go back and renegotiate it. So it doesn't necessarily mean something bad is going to happen, but I've seen it a million times. Not the best time to launch a new venture. Maybe wait until the end of July to like start to put the pieces together. Then we enter eclipse season. That's a whole other conversation. But also just give yourself a lot of time, give yourself a lot of grace. And ultimately, it's a really beautiful time to like reflect and think about what's working for you and what's not. And think about how you're communicating with the people in your life and whether you are showing up as best you can. And there might be these difficulties that reveal the places where there's friction. That's good. We want to know ourselves better. We want to know people in our lives better. We want to be better communicators. So I don't want people to feel nervous, but I think it'll be a funky few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Also just good at like, I mean, for me personally, hearing you, I am someone who constantly just needs to slow down.
Yeah.
Just slow down, Vallarta, slow down a little bit.
And I think that's the pleasure of astrology like this. When we get really worked up and anxious about like something bad is going to happen, we actually speed up and we reinforce the problem. When we're like, okay, my astrology teacher says that the point of astrology is to reflect on what is happening to us as it happens to us. It's not to and I say this as somebody who does this, it's not to get obsessed with the future and feel like we can control it and get all OCD about it. It's actually to be here and be like, whoa, okay. My boss didn't understand what I was trying to say. How can I show up better next time?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I have been seeing rumblings online that Jupiter is going to be in Leo for the first time since 2014.
Yes.
What does that mean for Salt Lake City? Because we know that Salt Lake City, last time you were on the show, you made a chart for Salt Lake City, and we know that our city is a Leo.
Yes, our city has a Leo sun at the first degree, which means as we're talking about this right now, Jupiter is right on top of Salt Lake City's sun. This is where I start to get really in the weeds. And so if I'm saying things that are like overwhelming you, just ignore the astrological lingo. But Salt Lake City is a Leo. And we are a Sagittarius rising. And this was really important because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter is a really important chart, a really important planet in the chart of our city. And Jupiter has a lot to do with our beliefs. It has a lot to do with our relationship with the divine and with our higher power in our life. It also has a lot to do with abundance. It has a lot to do with expansion. And I think it's easy I've been really deep down a rabbit hole of Utah history lately. And I think it's easy to think about Jupiter having this relationship to this idea of making the desert bloom. And a Ute elder that I was interviewing this week said the desert blooms on its own. And I think that's a really valuable thing for us to remember. It might feel in this moment for us as a city like expansion is everything. It might feel like we're getting really entrenched in our beliefs. And also, it can be really beautiful. Jupiter in a really valuable place in our chart, right on top of our sun, in our 9th house, which is a special, beautiful house. It really could be a moment where we start to care for each other better, where we start to engage with our community on a higher level, and we start to see that someone suffering in our community is not separate from us. There's something really beautiful about the oneness that Jupiter can remind us of. But when it's just bigger, 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 Jupiter can do that. And so I think there's also going to be this reminder that Mercury retrograde tells us as well that we can kind of let the desert bloom on its own. We can kind of sit back and not try to force everything that's happening. We can be present in the moment, and the ways to help other people will reveal themselves. The ways to help other people without bigging up our egos will reveal themselves. So I think those could be the traps and the shadows, but also the beauty of it. And ultimately, a good Jupiter transit is a good Jupiter transit. And this is really lovely for us.
Okay. We need this.
We do.
We're going to need this. We're going to need this.
And I think it's hard not to think about the wildfires. As a Sagittarius rising and a Leo sun, there is so much fire in the chart of Salt Lake City on an elemental, esoteric level. And there is so much very literal fire in this state right now. And we're recording this before the 4th of July, but I'm frankly nervous that when you're hearing this, it's going to be worse than it is at this moment. And so
same.
I think that this Mercury retrograde is in Cancer. It's in a water sign. And I would just encourage everyone to take this quite literally. As we have this big expansion of the fire, literally, energetically, think about how we can thoughtfully water. This doesn't mean overwater your grass. This doesn't mean take a really long shower. This means be thoughtful about okay, can I go be in water in a reservoir and cool down? Can I offer water to the people in my community who need it? Can I make sure that I'm being thoughtful about my water consumption? I think this idea of playing with the fire and the water is a really nice way to think about the astrology right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. Addy, before I let you go, you wrote a book.
It's true.
And it's good. I saw it. You were reviewed by The Guardian. I was like, go off, Addy.
It's true. Yes, I wrote a book.
Tell our listeners a little bit about the magical game and where you'd like them to go pick up a copy.
Yes. It's fun. You guys are really getting a real Addy Baird full spectrum thing today.
I know. It's true. Politics to astrology to baseball pipeline.
Totally. Which weirdly, the book brings all of these things together. My book is called The Magical Game, The Spirit and History of Baseball Superstitions, Jinxes, and Curses. I have a copy somewhere. And It came out June 2nd. It is about the history of baseball superstition, which is one of my longtime hyperfixations. It's also about the history of magic. I say that this is a book that is for people who love baseball and people who don't know anything about baseball and don't care at all, because
yes,
the parts of this book that are frankly my favorite are the parts about the history of superstition and the history of our relationship in the Western world to magic. And it is it's fun. I think it's really fun. I think it's a fun read. People have been saying that it's a book, it's like a perfect beach read, and I actually totally agree. It's not too long. It's well researched. That's my favorite thing. I love archives. I love history, but people say it's not like too deep and intense to read. It's not like reading a textbook at all. It has fun, weird stories. And you can pick it up anywhere that books are sold. But if I may, I would like you guys to go support Central Book Exchange in Sugar House. They are really wonderful. They're my favorite local bookstore in my neighborhood, and they're family run. And
they just got a new puppy.
They just got a new puppy. Yes. Yes. And they do a lot of work to support local authors, and they have like a truly incredible selection of new and used books. So I would encourage people to go buy it at Central Book Exchange or King's English, which was so sweet to host me for a signing. They might have some signed copies left. But support local independent bookstores. That's my ask.
Yes. And I will say, like, my relationship with this book is, my relationship with sports is that I like sports. I think that they're interesting. I'm not like a lover of the game.
Yeah.
I'm a lover of watching the game,
Yeah.
but not like the game itself. But I'm a lover of 30 for 30s. And so storytelling around like sports as this platform, as this like way into understanding our society and ourselves, that's sort of how I come at it.
Yes.
And I think this book is a good fit for people like that, who I imagine
100%.
are ample in our audience.
Yeah, it's a book that's really more about, it's funny, when the early copies went out, I don't really look at the Goodreads reviews, but I took a peek. And there was a woman who gave the book 3 stars. She was like, I thought this was going to be more about baseball. It's like a little too much about the point of life for me. And it's my favorite review. I'm like 100%. Like, this is a book about what it is to be human and why we're alive through the lens of baseball.
You're going to have to put that on the jacket for the
No,
re-release.
genuinely, I agree. On the paperback.
Addy Baird, it has been so wonderful to spend this time with you. Thank you for talking through so many things with me. And I wish you a wonderful week.
Allie, I wish you a wonderful week. And congratulations to this crew on their Best of the Beehive.
Thank you.
We love CityCast Salt Lake.
Thank you. That is all for us today here on CityCast Salt Lake. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around town. Take care.